I mean, personally, I think Remain and Leave are redundant these days, don't you?
Yep.
I do. Look, the people voted in a referendum. They made a decision, and as Democrats, we all respect that. So we're going to get on with it and implement their decision, and that's what we're doing.
Now, I talked to people on both sides of the European argument, if I can put it that way, yesterday in the Conservative Party, MPs, influential MPs, politicians, and they both said to me that actually the white paper is dead on arrival. What do you say to that?
I don't agree. I think the Chequers agreement had a very hard job to do because both in the country there's a huge range of opinion, in Parliament there's a huge range of opinion, and there is in the Conservative Party too. So it was a very, very difficult thing to do, to try and come up with a set of proposals that delivers the referendum result, so gets back control over the money, stops free movement, gets back control of laws, but at the same time protects the economy. And I think, personally, I think it did that pretty well. I'm happy that it does deliver a real Brexit while at the same time protecting jobs. There is a debate going on, but if you talk to even some of the more, let's say, committed members of the sort of Brexit wing, what they're saying now, now they've had a chance to sort of digest it and think about it, is let's go through the detail, let's think about it carefully. They're not using sort of inflammatory language, which was the case over the weekend.
I think
people have
a
calmed down.
statement saying there will be no more resignations from the European Research Group, and they're not trying to bring them.
So I think people have calmed down, which is good.
Do you think it's a runner at all?
Well, I mean, it's taken 2 years to come up with this. It took 2 days for it to unravel, and we haven't even got anywhere near presenting it to our European Union counterparts, who ultimately have to negotiate on the terms with us. So I have to say, I mean, this is one of the most important decisions we're going to be taking as a country since World War II, and the government, in my view, has completely botched it.
But what about the substance of it? I mean, I understand that you're not impressed by the Conservative Party. You are a Labour MP, after all. But, I mean, what about the substance of it as someone who's followed this issue closely? Do you see the outlines there of something that you could, in the end up supporting?
Yeah, I mean, I hear what you say about being a Labour MP, you will oppose the Conservatives, but actually this is a decision in the national interest, and it has to be taken in that context. And as somebody who is sitting right at the front row of this, it is quite distressing to watch how poorly managed the whole situation is. And ultimately, the proposals that are there, I don't believe will get the majority of Parliament supporting them, and I don't think the EU are going to agree to the demands that are there. So therefore, in terms of the substance,
what do you think of the substance?
It's you know, dead before it's even taken off.
You do think
so? So I mean, ultimately, it rules out any kind of framework for services. And I don't think you can divide the economy up in this way between goods and services and expect that to function and hold up in terms of the European Union and their position, because they are very clear that there are, you know, the EU freedoms and the way that the single market and customs union and the European Union functions are indivisible. And we're trying to cherry pick and take bits of the EU that we like and leave the bits that we don't like, and it's just not going to be a runner.
So on services, you think that they should be included, we should sign up to the single market in them as well?
Well, yes, I do, and I tell you why, because coming from the northeast, we've seen the government's hard Brexit proposals crashing out of the EU. We'll see a 15% hit to the northeast economy. Under the government's current proposals, we still see 11% hit to the northeast economy. These are jobs. These are hundreds of thousands of jobs that people in my region rely on. So we've got to get the government to get this right and get a deal that works not just for one part of the UK, but that can work for the whole of the UK.
A lot of your colleagues do want changes to what would appear to be agreed at Chequers. I mean, what about that idea of putting services under the single market?
Well, I think what we just heard is effectively a case for remaining in the single market. That is not what people voted for. If we remained in the single market, as she was suggesting, we'd still be making massive payments to the EU, there'd still be unlimited free movement, and all of our economy, not just product standards, would be subject to EU regulation. So that is definitely, what she was describing is definitely a betrayal of the referendum result. She mentioned economic impact. Of course, this only got announced on Friday, so no one's done a detailed piece of modelling, but I think actually this will be beneficial to the economy. On services, it does talk about services, there'll be more in the white paper. The approach to services, which is 80% of the economy, is going to be a regulatory equivalence approach, which is how most free trade agreements work, where we and the EU say we're going to maintain equivalent, not identical, but equivalent regulatory standards, and any dispute will get independently arbitrated, not by the ECJ. So that will allow market access in both directions, not quite the same as we have now, a bit less, but nonetheless it will continue. And the City of London, when I asked Number 10 why have we chosen to remove services, the answer they gave was that, you know, the service industry, for example, the City of London, themselves said that they did not want to be bound by future EU regulations, which they thought would hamper their ability to do business. Whereas on products, if you talk to British Aerospace or Rolls-Royce or car manufacturers, they actually do want to continue abiding by the product standards because the supply chains are so integrated, and the feeling is product regulations aren't going to change much. So we can sign up to that. And of course, signing up to product regulations only means that at the border, whether that's the port of Dover or Felixstowe or the critical Northern Ireland, Southern Ireland border, we can have a completely friction-free border there, which is good constitutionally and good practically. So I think what I found with this, it's like the opposite of a budget. You know, when the Chancellor delivers a budget, it sounds good on budget day, and then over the 2 or 3 days afterwards, it sort of unravels. This is the reverse. You know, we had a bit of a backlash immediately, Boris and David Davis, but the more you look at the detail, and you do need to look at it in detail, then the more it makes sense. And I think as colleagues do that, they will see that as the coming days and weeks go by.
So the first thing I would say is we don't have the detail. We're waiting for this white paper to come out.
Well, I've had the benefit of like 3 hours going through with Number 10. So the detail is there because I've heard it.
Right.
Did you go to the briefing that was offered by the government?
I was in Brussels on Monday. We were meeting with Brexit negotiators. The message from the EU is perfectly clear. We were willing to negotiate. We want to sort this out. We want a Brexit that works for the EU and for the UK.
And Chequers
but we have no details about what it is we want to negotiate. And what's being proposed in terms of these Chequers arrangements already crosses the red lines that the EU have said they cannot entertain.
Barnier welcomed it, even he did, and discussions start next week in detail.
We're promised detail tomorrow, and we look forward to having you back to discuss it. Thank you very much indeed.